Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're diving into how AI is changing mental health care.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time for this
Like,
stuff.
are we talking like a full Black Mirror situation or something else?
Not quite Black Mirror, but definitely moving away from just diagnoses and predictions with AI.
Okay, so more like what then?
More like AI designed to understand us,
Yeah.
to understand our emotions and respond in a way that feels supportive.
So how does that even work?
Well, some developers are even trying to work humor into their AI therapy programs,
Wow, really?
like trying to make these AI therapists more relatable or something.
Huh. So is that even possible?
It's all about the data.
Right.
Instead of just clinical data, developers are using all kinds of stuff to train these
Like
algorithms,
what?
like literature and music and even art.
Seriously.
Yeah, the goal is to get the algorithms to actually understand human emotions,
Wow.
not just recognize patterns in data.
That's wild.
And,
So how is this actually being used in mental health care then?
well, one really interesting area is virtual therapeutic environments.
What?
Yeah, so like using virtual reality to create a calming space for someone.
Oh, interesting.
So picture like a beach at sunset or a cabin in the woods.
Okay, yeah.
And you can tailor these virtual spaces to an individual's preferences.
That's pretty cool.
Mm.
But is that really therapy?
It can be if it's part of a larger therapeutic approach.
Okay, so how?
For example, therapists are using VR to help patients with phobias.
Oh, wow.
Like instead of just imagining a spider, you're facing it head on in VR.
That's intense.
Yeah, it allows for a level of exposure therapy you can't get in the real world.
That's pretty amazing. So are we like on the verge of a whole new era of mental health care or what?
I think so.
That's wild.
And it's not just VR either. We're also seeing a lot of really cool AI-powered apps.
Oh, yeah. What are those like?
Well, they can track your mood, your sleep, even your social media activity.
Really?
Yeah, and all that data is used to personalize the support and guidance these apps provide.
So is it like having a therapist who knows everything about you?
Kind of. But that brings up some obvious privacy concerns.
For sure. That's a lot of personal information.
Right. Which is why all these apps we're talking about use really strong encryption to protect your data.
Okay, good. But even then, some people might feel weird about an app having all that data.
Of course. And that's why transparency is so important for these companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with all this talk about algorithms and data,
Yeah.
where does the human element fit in here?
Well,
Are therapists going to get replaced by robots or something?
that's a question we get a lot, actually.
I bet. It's like the million-dollar question these days.
It is, but the answer isn't so simple.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's not really about replacing therapists, though.
Okay.
It's more about giving therapists better tools,
Okay.
AI can help with, like, scheduling and tracking symptoms and stuff.
Oh, that makes sense.
So therapists have more time to focus on you, the patient.
Yeah, that's the important part, right? The human connection.
Exactly. And it's not just individual therapy either.
Yes.
Oh, how so? Well, AI is also being used to create online support groups,
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
which can be really helpful for people who feel isolated.
For sure. So are there any downsides to all of this? Like, besides the privacy stuff?
Well, yeah, we have to make sure this technology is used ethically.
Yeah, like what kinds of things?
We need to be really careful about the data,
Okay.
and we need to make sure these algorithms aren't biased against certain groups of people.
Yeah, that's really important.
Because the thing is, AI can be really good or really bad.
Right. It's a powerful tool.
Exactly. And it's up to us to make sure it's used for good.
I saw in some of these sources that there's this new thing called neurohacks.
Oh, yeah. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, what is that all about?
It's basically about using technology to rewire your brain.
Rewire your brain. Sounds kind of scary.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
Okay.
It's based on the idea that your brain can change throughout your life.
Yeah.
And there are ways to kind of nudge it in a positive direction.
So like, what are these neurohacks?
They can be anything from meditation apps to VR experiences.
Wow, so it's about giving people more control over their mental health.
Yeah, exactly. And that can be really empowering for people.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've talked about AI for therapy and support,
Right.
but can it also help prevent mental health issues in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think the answer is yes, but it's tricky.
How
So
so?
we don't want to end up over-diagnosing people.
Right, like just because you're stressed doesn't mean you have anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that balance.
How do we do that?
Well, imagine an app that tracks your mood and stuff.
Okay.
And let's say it notices you get anxious before big deadlines at work.
Yeah.
Instead of saying you have an anxiety disorder, it could suggest ways to manage that stress.
That's a good point.
Like maybe taking breaks or practicing mindfulness.
Right.
It's about giving people the tools to help themselves.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it seems like the key here is to use AI to empower people.
Absolutely. We don't want to create more fear or dependency.
Yeah, we want to give people agency over their own mental health.
Exactly.
That's a good place to be, I think. So with all these advancements, what are some of the biggest challenges we're facing?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It feels like we're on the edge of something really new here.
We definitely are.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, how do we make sure all of this benefits us, without creating a whole new set of problems?
Right, like we don't want to solve one problem just to create a new one.
Exactly. So where do we even begin with that?
Well, I think data privacy is a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, how do we make sure all this mental health data doesn't end up being used against us?
Right. It's not like our shopping habits or something.
Exactly. This is really sensitive stuff.
It is.
So we need to be thinking about who has access to our data.
And what they're allowed to do with it.
Exactly.
No.
Like, imagine a future where you have complete control over your own mental health data.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Right. You could decide who has access and for how long.
And everyone would have to use that data responsibly.
Exactly.
That would be huge.
It would.
Yeah.
And it would hopefully encourage more people to actually use this technology.
Totally. Because trust is a big issue.
It is. And that's not the only issue.
Right. There's also the question of accessibility.
Exactly. Like, we don't want this technology to only be available to people who can afford it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It needs to be accessible to everyone.
It does. And not just financially.
Right. Like what else?
Well, we need to make sure these technologies are designed to be inclusive,
That's a good point.
like culturally sensitive and all of that.
Yeah, because not everyone experiences mental health in the same way.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure these AI systems are designed with everyone in mind?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
It is for sure.
We need to shift our thinking.
Like how so?
Well, instead of seeing AI as a quick fix,
Yeah.
we need to think about it as part of a much bigger picture.
So it's not just about technology, it's about society as a whole.
Exactly, because mental health is connected to everything else.
That's so true. It's like our environment, our relationships, our jobs, everything.
Well, we can't just ignore all of that.
No, we can't. It's all connected.
It really is. And I think this is what makes this whole conversation so important.
Me too. It's not just about the tech. It's about what kind of world we want to create.
Exactly. And how we can use technology to help us get there.
Well said. So where do we go from here?
I don't know if I have all the answers,
That's okay. No one does.
but I think we need to keep asking these tough questions.
And keep having these conversations.
Yeah, exactly. Because the future of mental health depends on it.
That's a great place to end it, I think. This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive.
I agree. It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, take care of yourselves out there.